Hello. I don't know why I'm feeling very nervous and like odd to film this video. I haven't filmed a video. I say this every time that I come back from not filming videos, but like it's been a really long time. April, maybe? It's been like since April. I mean, it's August now, so it's been a while. Hi friends, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Hi. Hello. If there are any of you left, welcome. I'm glad that you are here. I am glad to be here. I just burped, excuse me, we just had dinner. I just stabbed myself in the face. Okay, so this is off to a wonderful start, clearly. We're going to be talking about the next 5 books that I read this year. And this video has taken me so long for a number of reasons. First of all, I haven't been reading like anything. I think since the last video I filmed, I've read like maybe 7 books. I'm not reading this year. I'm having a hard time finding things that I enjoy, that are keeping my attention, that I'm excited to pick up and wanting to continue reading. A lot of the things that I have liked in past years, like I'm not enjoying this year. It's just like a whole thing. Like my reading tastes, I don't even know what they are anymore. And that's just making finding things to read really challenging. Sorry, I'm touching my hair so much. I've recently cut it. It's the first time I'm seeing myself like on camera with short hair, and it's like tripping me up. So I'm very focused on it and I need to stop looking at it. When I first started this channel, I started YouTube because I was really into the beauty community and beauty content. And I loved to watch makeup videos and like product reviews and things like that. So not into like the makeup world anymore. I don't have time, or I don't make time. Makeup is not a priority. I don't find it fun or relaxing or soothing or enjoyable at all to sit down and do a makeup, which I used to really like doing. Gotten so used to living my life and like spending my day makeup free that when I have makeup on, it just like feels, I don't like the way it feels on my skin. Just like I feel very limited by it. Like I finish filming and I immediately want to go take it off because I don't think I can put my head on the couch, or like I can go work out, or like I can like change my clothes. I needed to like get over that idea that I have to put on makeup to like do a sit down video to film, because my hair is generally presentable most of the time. I can put on nice like presentable clothes very easily, but the makeup thing was just tripping me up for so long. Like I couldn't do a video like this without putting on makeup, which is crazy because I do vlogs all the time with no makeup. And I do my live shows monthly for House Salt with no makeup, and it was just like wild to me that I live my daily life with no makeup, go to work without makeup, like I just don't ever wear it. And so the idea that like I felt I had to put it on to sit down and do like a video like this style is very weird to me. But I like would rather film and like upload and have content than never film and never do a hobby that I enjoy, because I feel limited by the makeup. So we're not wearing makeup anymore. You know, if I put it on, I put it on. If I happen to already have it on, I have it on. If I don't, who cares? I don't care. And I don't think that you should care, because it really doesn't affect you at all. Now that we have covered all of the like mini life updates, and I feel like I've adequately explained what's been going on this year, we can talk about books, I guess. I have 5 books that I can talk about today. So we can start there, because I really have not been reading this year. And of these 5 books, I'd say these are like 5 of the better books I've read this year. I'm looking at the stack over there. Really not finding anything to read this year, so I'm struggling. I'm really struggling with the reading this year. I don't even remember like the format in which I film these videos. This is very casual. Shocking. The first of those 5 books was Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. This is the 3rd book in the Fix Her Up series. I think it's like the Hot and Hammered series. And I think it's my least favorite of the 3. And I was really excited to get to this one because I really like the dynamic that these two have in the earlier books, but I really feel that this book just, I would have liked it better, I think, had I read it like a year or 2 ago. But where I'm at now in life and like the work that I've done this year, this book just kind of got on my nerves. We're following Bethany and Wes, and Bethany is one of the siblings of the Castle family. Like the first book, you're following Georgie, and this is Georgie's older sister. And she is like the designated stager for this flipper flop style company. And so she just goes in and makes all the houses really pretty at the end. But she really wants to get into the business of flipping and like prove to her family that she's more than just like the design person. Life looks very, very idealistic, very magazine worthy, kind of like how she's supposed to make these houses. And it's not. Like, she's really struggling with a lot of mental health anxiety things. And then we have Wes, who is this new guy that comes to town, and he is trying to get past all of her defenses. He's like the one guy that can, I almost said a word that I don't think I should say on the internet, so I'm not going to say that. And he's like the one guy that can really get under her skin and bother her. And they have this relationship, and he's much younger than her. I think he's like 23, and she's almost 30 or is 30. And so like there's this very different dynamic in their ages. When I was like 22, 23, I was like a very different person than a 30-year-old, and especially being that he's the younger of the two, it's just like the age thing was brought up a lot throughout this book. He calls her old constantly, and like it's really emphasized that she's 30, and he's just like this guy that is a bad boy, and like the way that he speaks to her, like I just couldn't take it seriously. I was like, if a person talked to me like this in real life, I'd probably slap them. Which I've read lots of books where that is the case, but it's never bothered me until this year. And I'm like, this is not, I don't enjoy this anymore. I've outgrown this dynamic. I've outgrown this dialogue. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't enjoying myself like I have previously. I don't know if that's just this book particularly. I don't know if I would have enjoyed the other ones from the earlier in the series. If I were to go back and reread them, I don't know if like, this is something that I'm going to have an issue with going forward, but this is like the first book that I read since like some personal things that I was really annoyed by the like bad boy trope. And I haven't ever said that before, but like I did not enjoy this. Not to say that I hated it, but I just was like, I wrote down in my notes here, he had an alpha male possessiveness language, which is not something that I would like literally ever have been bothered by in the past, but new me, I guess. New reading taste. Also, I was really annoyed that it was like, she's 30. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Life ends at 30, okay? I mean, it doesn't. I mean, that's me being dramatic, but that's like how the book made it seem. It's like, oh my God, she's 30. I was like, shut up. He's a child. Anyway, I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not my favorite in the series. It's not something that I would like recommend. Like if you liked the first 2 and you like other things like this, you probably will enjoy it, but it's not the first thing to be like, oh, you need to read this romance book. Like, is how I felt about it. The next book that I read was the House Salt book choice for April, because that's how long ago this was and how long it's taken me to read 5 books. I don't even know what side of the screen I'm supposed to be sitting on. Is it like this side? Wait. I always pick the wrong side and then I get mad at myself when I'm editing. Not that like it really matters, but I feel like it matters. Is it this side? I'm gonna pick a side and I'm gonna hate myself later. For April, we read Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which is the first book in the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. It's a dystopian YA trilogy. It's been very popular on BookTube for a long time. It's like a BookTube darling at this point. A lot of people really, really enjoy it, and I was one of them. I actually did really enjoy this. We're following 2 kids at the beginning of the novel who encounter a scythe. And in this world, everything that causes mortality they've conquered. So they still need to somehow control the population, and so they have these people called scythes who get assignments to go out and glean or kill people. We meet Rowan and Citra at the beginning of the novel, and they're both being apprenticed by this one scythe. And then there's a point in the novel that happens where their paths really branch off and they're forced to go in 2 different directions, but like under the same skill set. And it was really intriguing and like really fulfilling to watch 2 storylines essentially play out at the same time, because it could have just been like one character or the other that we were following and seeing how they handled being a scythe and like the apprenticeship and everything, but we got to see both and like how going in these 2 different directions can really affect the person and like the scythe that they become. And I really enjoyed that. It was like such a fun dichotomy to see Rowan and Citra, who like were classmates, but then something happened that made them go in separate paths, and we had like this lawful, very by the rule book kind of character versus this more like vigilante character. And I really just liked their dynamic together. I liked the way that they built the world. I thought the world was really fun and really interesting and really well developed. I liked all like the intricacies of the scythe and how that came to be, and like how they referenced like our historical history, like current day, and how they got to the places that they were in this novel. The only thing that I wasn't a fan of was the romance, and I think this is a really common complaint for this novel because it just didn't feel authentic. It didn't need to be there. Like, these two characters didn't need to have a romance. It didn't feel appropriate for the story. It didn't feel like it was really well interwoven with the rest of the story, and so because of that, I only gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I would have liked them to just not, like, just have been comrades, you know, classmates turned adversaries or whatever. They didn't need to have a romance. It didn't, in my mind, add anything to the dynamic of the two of them working with and against each other. But I am going to continue with this for sure. I really enjoyed the first book. It was a great time. It's one of the better like YA things I've read this year. The next 2 books that I read are actually for a video, and I kind of forgot about this video, honestly, until now. The first book that I read for that video was People Like Us by Dana Mel, I'm not sure. And this is like a YA mystery, private school, boarding school murder situation. Like, I always say how much I enjoy YA novels that take place at boarding schools and are following like the murder of a student or like the disappearance of a student, and we have other characters that are like trying to solve the murder. Like Pretty Little Liars, Gossip Girl, things like that are kind of like really in this vein too, I think. Even though I really enjoy them, I don't feel like I found one that I love yet. I don't feel like there's been like a particular book where I'm like, that was done super well. And so this is my quest to find the book for me. And I do think that this is one of the better of the genre. I don't, to be honest, remember the plotline super well, which speaks to how memorable it was. But we're following our main character, Kay, who was previously at a public school, and then she gets transferred to this private prep school before the start of the novel. And she plays soccer there, and she is like a very dedicated to her team, and athletics is like her whole life. And then something happens where a student is found murdered and jeopardizes her soccer career, and she gets like thrust into this. I said that very aggressively. My God. Anyway, she really gets thrown into this investigation because it is a student that she kind of has some history with, and she's also part of a group of people who found the student that was murdered. And so it's kind of like that Pretty Little Liars, like all of these girls were hanging out together, one ended up dead, what happened, who's lying, who's telling the truth. A game comes into play later where she's trying to like solve these clues on this like mysterious website, try to exonerate her friends, but then they're also trying to incriminate her friends. It's like this whole thing. And I liked it. Like, it was fun. Books like this also have a tendency to have like dead cats in them, or like traumatic scenes with cats being abused or murdered or whatever. And I don't understand why that's such a prevalent thing in these YA crime mysteries that I read. I really get annoyed by it because they never do it. Not that I want them to like murder dogs. I just feel like it's always a cat, and like the cat is just so expendable and it's just unnecessary. Like, why do we need to have a violence of animals in these books? Like, it's just, I hate that plot point, and I've read it in so many books like this, and this one unfortunately had it, and I was very disappointed when I got to that scene. And I was like, of course there's a dead cat in this book, because why wouldn't there be? It's happened in so many books I've read like this. I also thought this book had a pretty abrupt ending. The resolution came about very quickly. Like, we had all this buildup and we had all of this investigation, and then the climax of the book hits, and very soon after everything comes to light, the book is done, and they're just like, okay, here's the resolution, here's where our characters are at. There's like no real punishment, no real like sense of the people who did the wrong thing were adequately taken care of, you know? It just kind of ended, and I would have liked a little bit more fleshed out things happening at the end there. But in all honesty, despite that, this is one of the better books I've read like this, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was also for that video, and that is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the first book in her newest series. If you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I love Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The Natural series is like my all-time favorite YA boarding school murder mystery thing I've ever read. We're following Avery, who randomly gets a letter from this estate of this like wealthy billionaire, and she needs to come to his will reading for reasons that she has no idea. And when she gets there, she finds out that she's actually left like a huge sum of money, basically this man's entire estate, and she's never met him before. She has no idea who he is. There's no connection that she knows of to this man. He also has 4 grandsons who feel like they are rightfully owed this inheritance. In order for her to claim it though, and to like take it, she needs to win this game. But she doesn't know this man. So her, with the help of the 4 grandsons, are trying to solve this riddle treasure scavenger hunt to get to the end for her to ultimately like win the inheritance. But they're hoping that they will along the way find out like why their grandfather didn't leave it to them, and like how this girl is interwoven into their lives because they've never met her either. I really, really enjoyed this. I love the way that Jennifer Lynn Barnes writes murder mystery novels, especially for YA, because I feel like it's so hard to write good mystery novels like this for younger people and teens, because that fine line is so fine of like making it spooky or like thrilling and captivating enough, but not too much where it's now not appropriate. I think it's actually going to be a trilogy now, which I thought it was only going to be a duology, so I'm very excited. There's a 3rd book that comes out next year. The 2nd one comes out this fall, and I will be absolutely continuing with this because I had an absolute blast reading this. It's not my favorite of her series. The Naturals is still my favorite, and I really did enjoy The Fixer, and then I also read her debutante series, which is, it was okay. That was a little bit more Pretty Little Liars meets Gilmore Girls. This is a little bit more dark academia-y. Dark academia. I think that's the word I was looking for. I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book for this video today is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which was our House Salt book pick for June. This is the 3rd book in TJR's, I know it's a series, but I don't know if it's marketed as a series, where each of her books takes place in a different decade. So like Evelyn Hugo's the 50s, no, 60s. Daisy Jones in the 60s, the 70s. This is supposed to be the 80s. And each one kind of like hits on a different like type of fame. So we had Hollywood and the movie stars and like that world in Evelyn Hugo. Daisy Jones is much more about rock and roll and musicians. And then this one kind of dips a little bit into the rock and roll musician, but also into the professional athlete, because we're really following some surfer culture in Malibu in the 80s, which I know was like a really big up and coming time for Malibu. It's really when it had like a big turning point in its popularity, its value, and people were flocking to that area for surfing, and famous people were flocking there too. So we're following these 4 siblings and the tumultuous relationship of their parents. Their father's a very famous musician, and he met their mother before his fame and before everything happened that like skyrocketed him. And like the dynamic that happens when someone becomes so famous and has access to so much, and what happens to the family dynamic at home as a result, and like the downward spiral of their relationship. And then you're also following the 4 kids when they're older, all leading up to this house party, where the party ends in like this catastrophic fire. Like the whole book revolves around how Malibu's always burning. There's a romance and there is this tragic love story, which I feel like TGI really likes to write, especially in these like historical, very atmospheric novels. I enjoyed this. I really liked the family dynamics. I really liked the commentary on how parents make their children and like the effects that parents have on their children, whether they intended to or not. I thought that was a very interesting conversation to have. I thought that the parents' relationship was a little bit sloppily interwoven throughout the story. Like, we really kind of had two stories that were happening at once and they weren't melded together super well. Like, we could have had like a whole book on just the hours leading up to the party, because there's so much that's happening between these four siblings in the hours leading up to this party that we could have had a whole book on that. And then like the parents' relationship could have been a whole nother book. And I liked the two things together, and I think they both needed to be there to like complement each other and make the story well-rounded, but I just don't think they were interwoven super well. Like, the first half was very parental focused, and the second half we were like at the party and everything was happening all at once, and there's like people hanging on the chandelier, and it got really wild really quickly from the more like quiet storyline that it started with that felt more reminiscent of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones. And then at the end it was like we had kind of delved into a totally different book. If you want to hear us talk about this more in detail, we did have a whole like 60-minute live show discussion on this on Sam's channel, Thoughts on Tomes, and I will link that if you're interested and want to watch us. I think it was a really good discussion. It was a really fun discussion. I'm excited to see what she does for like the 90s. And at this point, we've kind of gotten the threads of what interweaves all the books together, and we've learned like how they're all connected in this universe, and I'm interested to see how she brings that into the next book. I do also wish that there was more surfing culture in this. I feel like that would have been really fun to have like more true Malibu 80s California surfing culture. Like, just a little bit more of that would have been, I think, a little fun. Because I think a 4 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy this. So that is it. Those were the next 5 books that I read in 2021. I think I'm like 12 books behind schedule. So I'm doing really well. That seems really possible to catch up, right? That seems doable. I'd like to know what you guys thought of these books in the comments down below. If you've read any of them, what you thought of them, your opinions. If you want to, like share any similar opinions with me. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Just come hang out with me and talk to me in the comments down below. I would really love that. And if you want to find me anywhere else online, my Instagram and Twitter handles are on the screen now. I might be a little bit more active over there than I am here. We're trying to change it all. We're trying to make it better. We are trying to improve. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do really appreciate it as always. And until next time, I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye!